you understand the importance of muscular function in the body? Do you understand how muscles function on the molecular level? Chances are you probably don't. That's why we're here to tell you. Let's talk about muscles in the human body.
There are over 600 muscles in the human body. These cover our entire body, lining our organs, bones, and arteries. There are three kinds of muscles that are found in the body: cardiac muscle, smooth muscle, and skeletal muscle. Though categorized as similar groups of tissues, these three groups of muscle differ structurally, functionally, and in their associations with other bodily systems. Muscle is only found in the heart and is subject to the autonomic nervous system. It is highly indefatigable and is able to last a lifetime, unlike the other two muscle types. It contracts about 100,000 times a day to keep us alive. Smooth muscle is muscle that lines the organs and arteries. It is also subject to autonomic influences, just as the cardiac muscle is. Smooth muscle is able to make various structures, like the stomach and the aorta, to contract and expand to maintain homeostasis through dynamic equilibrium. The final kind of muscle is skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is connected to bones via tendons and is subject to our conscious somatic nervous system control. The skeletal muscle is the muscle that gives us our posture and holds up our bodily structure. Now let's look at the structure of muscles and how they contract.
Though muscle contractions are occurring all the time in our body, it is a complicated and engaged process involving both macro and micro functions. The bulky structure on the outside is colloquially called the muscle belly, and is where the striations caused by sarcomeres are found. Within this thick layer of tissue on the outside of the muscle are contained bundles of fascia, the thick fibrous tissue that can be considered the intermediate level of muscle structure. Epimysium is the outside layer of each fascia. Within these thick fascicles are contained the individual muscle fibers with their own outside layers that comprise the endomysium. You can think of a muscle fiber to the fascia as graphite is to a pencil. It's contained within it. The cell membranes of the muscle fiber are called the sarcolemma. When you hear people use the term muscle cells, they are really referring to the individual muscle fibers, so muscle cell is somewhat of a misleading term. Like any other cell in the body, muscle cells have both mitochondria and a nucleus. Muscle fibers are not, however, the smallest units of muscular function, as there are even smaller units involved.
Fibers are contained myofibrils that are the essential source for contraction of the muscle. They consist of two kinds of filaments, thin filaments and thick filaments. Thin filaments consist of two strands of actin arranged into a double helix. Helix are line troponin and tropomyosin molecules that cover special binding sites in the actin. The thick filaments consist of the filamentous protein myosin. The molecule has a protruding head at numerous places along the thick filament. The general arrangement of things at this level is that there is a thin actin filament, then a myosin thick filament, and then another thin filament. These rows are the Z-lines mentioned before. This entire structure is called the sliding filament model of muscle contraction.
Now that we've looked at muscle structure, let's look at how the muscle actually contracts. The first step in muscle contraction is the arrival of a neuron action potential at the end of the motor neuron. Acetylcholine is the neurotransmitter that the motor neuron releases. This chemical signal binds to the postsynaptic plate on the muscle cell. This initiates a change in the permeability of the sarcolemma, the membrane of the muscle cell, and allows for sodium ions to rush in from outside the muscle cell. This action potential causes the T-tubules, proteins that line each myofibril molecule, to release calcium from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, the spaces in between the filaments of the myofibril. The calcium release then binds to troponin, the protein mentioned before that is connected to the actin chain in muscle. Troponin changes shape and moves tropomyosin to expose the binding sites on the actin chain. ATP then comes into play by binding the myosin in the thick filaments to the actin in the thin filaments, forming what is known as a cross bridge. ADP plus P is released as a result of the formation of the cross bridge. The myosin head then pulls the actin that enables the essential contraction of the muscle. It is important to make the distinction that the Z lines are contracting, not the actual actin itself. When the muscle needs to relax again, the cross bridge is broken and another ATP binds to myosin.
Contracts in the human body. Muscular contraction entails the functioning of the circulatory and respiratory system as well. From our knowledge of cellular respiration, we know that oxygen is required to make ATP. And since ATP used extensively in muscle contraction, we need more oxygen when we are working our muscles harder. Additionally, muscle contraction in high rates can lead to anaerobic respiration occurring in our muscles. This is known as lactic acid fermentation because it produces lactic acid as a waste product. As a result, the heart needs to pump blood faster to those muscles in order to filter out all of the waste that formed as a result of the muscle activity.
Muscles have larger implications beyond just the movement of our bodies and the contractions of certain organisms. They can be thought of as homeostatic determinants because they have influences on metabolic rates, fat content in the body, the activity of sweat glands, and even how long we live. Maintaining a healthy amount of lean muscle is essential to a long life. Muscle burns fat and enables us to have a regular metabolism. Diet is an important part of maintaining healthy muscular conditions.
It's essential to have the normal amount of protein and calories to maintain muscle health. Protein can help rebuild muscle after the micro tears that occur after exercise. Not having enough calories in your diet can cause a breakdown of some of the amino acids in muscles. So it is very vital to have a complete diet.
So, muscles are very important in our bodies and their function is complicated, but hopefully we've explained it well. Muscles are to the body what oil is to a car. They enable movement. Now that you've learned about muscles, it's time to work out. Come on, let's go!
Let's do this. Time to get brolic. Yeah.